This is the Daily Technology Pulse podcast from Daily Computers, the preferred technology provider for public and private sector organizations throughout Maryland and Virginia. Today's episode is brought to you by Daly's strategic partner Verkada, a premier provider of physical security solutions for organizations of all sizes. And now here's your host, Rick from Daly.
Joining us once again on the Technology Pulse podcast, we have Patrick DelBuono from Verkada. Patrick, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Rick. Thanks for asking. It's great to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, and we always have a great conversation. You know, this is one of those times, Patrick, where I think I'm just going to open things up by saying, so what's new with the world of Verkada? Because I hear you all have some amazing things coming out.
Man, you're not even going to put any guardrails on me today, Rick?
No,
awesome.
No. We're going right off the cliff.
Let's do it. I love it. I love it. So it's been an exciting time at Verkada. We've talked in the past, Rick, about, really our methodology is to build that platform for customers to manage their physical spaces, right? So we've talked about cameras, door access control, sensors. We've talked about some of these things in the past. The newest addition kind of to the lineup here is our cellular gateway. So this is a product we released beginning of February, and we're seeing a lot of traction with it. Essentially, we recognized that for a lot of customers, remote deployments are key to ensuring physical security of their spaces, their people, their assets. And that could be any kind of remote deployment. We typically see parking lots, construction sites, rural campuses, things of that nature where getting internet connectivity in the traditional sense from a wired perspective can be very time consuming, very difficult, and very expensive for that customer to actually get internet connectivity to those places.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the thing about the physical security devices is that you've got to get them wired up somehow. And like you said, you've got a lot of use cases where that's just, it's not that it's not possible, but it's not going to be done well, or it's not going to be done in an aesthetically pleasing fashion. I mean, you think cables hanging from poles or, strung between trees or something like that. And that's the big thing these days. You need some other method of connectivity in order to be able to hit those remote areas. So now you're saying this is now a cellular gateway. You're built on cellular connectivity. So you're connecting to a 4G or a 5G network?
5G, correct. Yeah. And, just to back up and take something you mentioned a step further, we've seen some pretty wild things when it comes to wiring. We've seen customers get quotes from contractors to rip up parking lots and trench cable and bring in backhoes. And you can imagine just the complexity and also just the disruption to daily operation that something like that could cause. So you're absolutely right, Rick. So basically the way the product works, and we won't get too deep into the speeds and feeds nerdy stuff today, but basically it's a 3-network cellular gateway. So there's a couple different ways you can do the data plan. So customer can obviously bring their own data plan and bring their own SIM card if they already have a relationship with a carrier and they want to keep that on their data plan. But also Verkada is now offering a data plan. So kind of the way that works is it's failover to 3 different networks, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon. So depending on the signal strength within whatever environment the customer is planning on implementing these, it's going to automatically fail over to whatever the strongest network is. If Verizon goes down for whatever reason, it's going to then back up to whatever the second most reliable network is in that location. So you've got that fail-safe built in. Unlimited data on that as well. And I think something that really is beneficial to the customer in terms of simplifying these deployments is the gateway itself has 2 PoE ports out. So essentially for the non-technical people listening, these devices need power, right? They're a network device, so they need 2 things, power and connectivity to the network. So from a power perspective, this cellular gateway can actually power up to 2 Verkada devices directly from that cellular gateway itself.
We're going to get back to some other things about the trenching, because you just reminded me of all the nightmares that happened when Verizon first launched their Fios network and said, and all of the cables are going to be underground. And boy, did they come to regret that decision. So it powers it.
Correct.
And so you got to start explaining this, because I'm already starting to think this is like Iron Man, repulsor technology or something like that.
We're not quite there yet, Rick. We're not the Avengers quite yet. That being said, basically the way we power these gateways. So we manufacture 2 versions. We have an indoor and an outdoor. Outdoor is obviously weather rated, and remind me to come back to that because I've got a fun story about that. But there's a few different ways that these can be powered. So for indoor, they can be hardwired in through a PoE cable, just like any cable. You can also power them through your standard, 12 volt wall outlet. Am I thinking about that? 120 volt?
120 volt.
120 volt, thank you. And then also in terms of light posts, so we see this deployment quite often. Light posts have a industry standard outlet. I believe it's called a NEMA socket, which when I learned about this became my new favorite word, actually, Rick. It sounds like something that should be living in a pond, a NEMA socket. And we actually have an adapter that can plug into that. So it can pull power from the light pole itself to power the gateway, which is then providing that power and connectivity through those 2 PoE ports to the devices themselves.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Yep. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's 110 volt. So
110 volt, yeah.
110 volt.
Great.
So we've got that down, because, you just reminded me of the old movie Mr. Mom, where he says, you're doing everything 220, 225, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That's where we're going with it. Now, honestly, that does sound like you really are, you're not just solving the connectivity problem. As far as a network, you're really solving 2 problems. You're giving them that easy button, because that is the other thing about remote, any type of remote system. Like you said, it's about getting power to it. I mean, I do remember I had one of the security cameras for my home security system out in my backyard that my wife absolutely hated, because it was an extension cord strung between 2 trees.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so, no more extension cords, no more trenching, no more ripping up parking lots and or sides of the road like Verizon did for years and years before they finally realized there are already lines on the pole. We don't care if there's another one.
Yeah, and for those very remote or even temporary deployments, we see this in the contracting and construction sector quite a bit, where a general contractor, they're building a building, they may want to have eyes on that construction site. They have materials, they have tools, they have things that tend to go missing, right? But they don't want that as a permanent installation. When they move on to the next construction site, they want to be able to pack it all up and move it with them to the next site.
Right.
So we actually see solar deployments with this as well. So with a solar panel and a battery, and we have engineers that can help kind of spec this out for you, as does DALY. So we can work together with these kinds of customers to help spec that solution. But basically, then with solar and cellular connectivity, it's essentially a powered physical security platform in a box that can be moved from point A to point B easily.
Right. And most of these places, I mean, everybody sits there and they think about solar panels, and you think about the home systems that everybody wanted to get all the solar panels on the roof, but they say, oh, you have to have so many hours of sunlight per day, and you can't have any trees, can't have any shade. But and what most people don't realize is solar panels today, the way that they're built, they can get 1 to 2 hours of direct sunlight. A cloudy day does not hamper it. It really is all about heat transfer. Not that I'm not trying to get my geek on too much here, but I did do a little work with the solar program years ago where, I do understand how these things operate. So that sounds fantastic. Now get back to the weather. You talked about, you had a really cool story about, some of these weather conditions, because I will tell you that is one of the big things. I mean, anybody who's ever had a satellite dish on their house, they immediately think I hate rain and I hate snow because I'm not going to be able to watch football or baseball or basketball or whatever else is on TV because the weather is just going to mess with me. So talk to me about that.
I can relate to that personally, Rick. I live somewhat rurally and have satellite internet myself, and sometimes it can be very frustrating on a cloudy day when I'm trying to join a Zoom call and I'm in and out and I can hear every other word that people are saying. It's quite frustrating. But the story I was going to share is actually when we were testing this product, we tested it with an existing customer of ours that's actually a ski resort. You can imagine ski resorts. They deal with weather that a lot of people in a residential sense don't.
Yeah.
Snow, blizzards, hail, rain, sleet, fog, wind, all of these things being on a mountaintop, right?
Yeah, they're on a mountain.
So we decided, as everything we do at Verkada, if we're going to go to market with a product, we want to make sure that it's prime time and it's ready to go. So we said, you know what, let's pick a customer that's going to be really tough on these cellular gateways, and let's give them some to test them. And they were thrilled with the result. In fact, they ended up buying the proof of concept and using those on ski lifts, outside of mid-mountain lodges, things of that nature. If you've ever been skiing, you probably can envision this. They're currently utilizing those to provide the video surveillance for those areas.
Right. And you got to think, and again, I know we're talking ski resorts versus government and education,
Sure.
But again, like you said, if it works in an extreme case, then it will work in non-extreme cases. But when you're thinking about those ski resorts and you're thinking about all those trails and all the places where they know somebody can go off the trail, and being able to have that connectivity and being able to watch that. Now think about that for some of these higher education campuses, where you have all these walking trails and there was no real way to monitor things. Imagine the world of possibilities you now open up to, I don't want to say guarantee because we never say guarantee, but to completely bolster and strengthen your physical security profile for your students, for your staff, for anybody. For visitors, it's possible to be able to put these devices, to put these cameras, to put these monitoring systems just wherever you would want them or need them in order to make people feel safe.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to, when I was in high school, and when we wanted to get in trouble, it was always, all right, we would go hang out in the cross country, course behind the school, or go hang out behind the tennis courts. If you're listening, mom or dad, I was never involved in any of that. I promise.
Never.
No.
He wasn't there. I was with him all the time.
But, I think what we've done, and we've talked about this on past podcasts, and being able to solve real customer issues, right? We talked at length in another podcast about vaping in bathrooms, and just being able through technology and through software-defined technology to be able to help our customers be more proactive towards their security than reactive. We're taking that a step further, and now we're making it easy and more cost-effective for our mutual clients to secure and monitor those areas that traditionally were difficult or price prohibitive to monitor, right? So I think you hit the nail on the head there, Rick.
Yeah. And again, I just happened to mention higher education campuses because they're typically larger. But even some of the K through 12 education campuses, again, I know where my kids go to school, it's where cellular connectivity went to die. For some strange reason, the cellular network there isn't very good, so you got to connect to the school's Wi-Fi. but it's not for everybody because I'm sitting there on my device, and I'm not going to say which carrier I have, Verizon, and I don't get a signal. And yet somebody's sitting next to me and they're on AT&T or they're on T-Mobile and they're just surfing away. So first of all, to know that you have the multiple networks so that you have that backup and you can go with the strongest one. But second of all, again, to know that on these campuses, the athletic field is about, 200 yards or more away from the physical school building. Well, you know that you're not going to get network connectivity to extend past that wall.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. Unless you have some big Wi-Fi antenna and then you're wondering what kind of radiation you're sending out into the world. And so,
speaking of Avengers.
Exactly. We're just going to, we're flying through people's heads with whatever it is that we're, just so that we could get a signal to a camera. But now you don't have that. Now you have that peace of mind where, again, you've got the athletic fields, you've got the playground, you've got everything that's outside the school building. You've got those areas that you were talking about that of people that you did not hang out with where things can happen around there. And particularly, these days, again, you're talking about construction. School construction is huge because populations in Maryland and Virginia, they're growing. These urban and suburban areas and even the rural areas are starting to grow because you're finding more and more people flocking to those areas. So school construction is a big thing. And those construction sites, again, there's nothing there at the beginning. So how are you going to have any type of monitoring of those sites?
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point there, Rick. And I think from a management perspective as well of these devices, if you've ever managed a remote deployment, it's not an easy process. We're not the first company out there to come out with a cellular gateway, right? I mean, they've been out there for a long time. But what we really wanted to do and what was really important to us was bringing it into that cloud managed umbrella of all of our other products so that our customers are managing all these devices from one place, from one single pane of glass, right? And, we hear that single pane of glass. It's the buzzword in the industry.
Yep.
But that's really the direction that all of these solutions are going. And, you can do some cool things as a result of that being part of the overall Verkada umbrella of products. So if you've ever had a camera go down in a remote deployment, oftentimes it's an issue of, is it something with the camera? Is it something with the gateway? Is it something with the power it's receiving? And what does that mean? That means somebody's got to get in a truck or a car, drive out there and diagnose the issue. Because all of our devices are cloud managed, we're building in a lot of those tools directly in Verkada Command to help you manage that and diagnose those issues remotely. So for example, being able to run a packet capture directly out of Command of all the traffic going through that cellular gateway. Being able to reboot a camera directly out of the interface for the cellular gateway within Command so that you can try to diagnose the issue before you ever have to go out and touch anything physically. So I think that's another big thing is oftentimes these are deployed in areas where it's not convenient or it's time consuming to go and do maintenance. So being able to handle some of that on the front end before you ever dispatch somebody is significant cost savings.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really where a lot of times people struggle with these remote deployments, because if you're putting it in a remote area and you're going to put it up in a tree, you don't want to climb a tree every time something goes fuzzy or suddenly you've lost connectivity. So being able to diagnose things without having to go climb the tree, I like when people keep me out of trees. I'm not meant to climb trees, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that feel the same way. So, but like you said, trees, light poles, these construction sites where, again, it might be on a fence or, it's somewhere in an area that's just not accessible. We love the fact that Verkada is forward thinking, not just in, hey, we need this device, but we need this device to, we need a way for people to check on these devices and be able to make sure that they're functioning properly and functioning at peak performance without having to go out there and, physically handle things.
Yeah. I think it boils down to simplicity, ease of use, and you just want the stuff to work.
Right. Well, and that's absolutely it. And that's every facet of life, but particularly, these areas, because again, when you're talking about a government agency, or you're talking about a school system, or you're talking about a higher education facility, obviously these types of deployments are not something that they just jump the gun and purchase willy-nilly. It's not like going to Amazon and okay, we're going to purchase the $11 cameras that, we're going to think might work, probably not, but they're no harm, no foul, and it's prime shipping, so we can just send them right back.
Yeah.
These are significant investments because it's investment in finances, it's investment in resources, it's investment in time. And so you don't ever want to take these things lightly. And I know that you really do focus on that when it comes to your customers. You want everybody to feel as comfortable with their investment as they possibly can, because everything that's gone into getting from point A to point B. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that's reflected in kind of the model of how we go to market. We really view the life cycle of these systems as a 10-year life cycle. And that may seem like a long time to a lot of people, but that's why these are network devices, and we're pushing updates and firmware updates and security patches over the network so that you always have the latest and greatest if you're a Verkada customer. This is why we offer a 10-year manufacturer's warranty on our products, because if something goes wrong with the physical hardware of that product, we're going to replace it. We've talked about this in past podcasts, Rick, right? Mm-hmm. And then combine that with 24/7 support. That's globally, wherever you are on the globe, you have 24/7 support. I believe I saw a statistic recently, and we published these in real time. 2-week rolling average of response time to a support chat as of last I checked, was 23 seconds. And 95% of instances we're able to fix remotely, our support team. Just because they're network devices, we can reboot, we can push updates, firmware updates, and we can get these things back online. And that saves the customer a lot of time and a lot of money in service calls and maintenance contracts and things like that.
That is spectacular. And kudos to your team for getting to that point, because I know that's not something, that's not your starting point. That's always something that you've built to. And so the fact that you've been able to produce those types of numbers, it's just incredible. And so, again, hats off to the Verkada team for doing as well as they have on that, because, again, we at DALY always have the same mindset. It's never just, we get the product to you and we're done and we walk away. It's we're providing a solution, and a solution never stops at installation. Because there are, there's maintenance, there's upkeep, there's, like you said, there's break fix, there's all that type of support. So having a partner like Verkada that we can count on for that type of support that, really does flow from our level of support that we try to give is always a pleasure.
Likewise. Yeah, likewise. DALY, my experience from working with you all the last 2 years it's been, is you all don't just ship a box from point A to point B, right? You all provide solutions to your customers that solve real pain points and that drive a lot of value. And I think that's why it's a marriage made in heaven, if you will.
No, definitely. We're happy to be in it. So obviously we're going to have people that are interested in this. If somebody's not, I'd be really curious as to know why. But again, I can just see so many use cases for this, for this technology and for this solution to come in. And by the way, I would be remiss if I did not ask this. So this seamlessly integrates with what they've already got, right?
Correct.
If they're a Verkada
if you're already a Verkada customer, this is going to seamlessly plug right in. You'll be able to manage these cellular gateways directly from your existing Verkada Command platform. If you're a new Verkada customer, all of your devices that you invest in are going to be managed from that single pane of glass. So seamless integration. It's really built to work with our products. It certainly can power and provide connectivity to other products out there, but we really custom designed it to really excel with Verkada, with other Verkada solutions. But yeah, absolutely, it's a seamless product.
Yeah, and because that's again one of those areas where people would have a hesitancy if all of a sudden, well, now I got to get a whole new gateway because I just I learned this one, I'm comfortable with this one, I know how to use this one, and I get a completely new one if I want to integrate these products. So this is good. They integrate. So again, if there are people that are curious, or as we always say, the proof is in the pudding, this is something that obviously we can help them with.
100%. Yeah. And we've done this in the past. So Verkada, we're very good about trials. So if you want to get your hands on something and play around with it, test it in your environment, we can absolutely do that. That's where DALY and Verkada will work together to provide that for you. If you need help setting something up, that's something that we can assist with as well as a team. And get your hands on it and test drive it. I never ask you, Rick, to go buy a car without getting behind the wheel and driving it for a few miles, right? Mm-hmm. And we want to extend that same concept to, buying technology. So absolutely, I would say for anybody who's interested or has been struggling with, how do we provide security in some of these remote or places where there's just no connectivity at the time, reach out to your DALY representative, reach out to the DALY sales team, and we'd be more than happy. They'll get us involved. We'd be more than happy to set up a proof of concept, show you a demo, show you kind of how it works from a nuts and bolts perspective. We can get as technical as you want. We have an engineering team that can assist with that, as does DALY, and we can let you try it before you buy it.
Yeah, and that is very important. I think back to the big thing a couple of years ago was, of course, buying vehicles online. And, you say about test driving, and I have bought a couple of vehicles online. And it was always interesting when I would trade a vehicle in that they would bring the vehicle I was thinking of purchasing on a rollback, back it out into my driveway, and say, okay, here are the keys, go take it for a test drive. And I'd go take it for a test drive. And by the time I got back, my vehicle that I was trading in was already on that rollback, all wrapped up, all strung up. So even if there was an issue, the seat isn't as comfortable as I thought it was going to be. Oh, wow. You've already taken my trade. All the paperwork is done. You're practically pulling out of my driveway.
Talk about a presumptive close.
I'm telling you. I mean, they put a lot of pressure. I bought a lot of seat cushions in those days because it was, I'm just going to have to buy the seat cushion because it's going to be a lot of rigmarole to swap that out. Glad that you guys don't have that mentality.
Yeah, 100%. We want to make sure that you're happy with your investment before you ever make the investment. There's things we can do to help you determine what's the best use of that investment. We're happy to do that. Whether it's total cost of ownership analyses to show you what is the true cost of this going to be over a 10-year life cycle. Like, we have the numbers to back that up, and we can, we jointly as a team here, Rick, we can help the customer through that decision-making process.
Yep. No, and that's really what we do, because again, as we've always said, we are trying to provide our customers with solutions, and solutions are not just a product. Solutions are everything from A to Z. It's all of the analysis, and it's all of the study, and it's helping them get through the budget cycle, and it's helping them make the case to procurement, or make the case to, the higher ups within the agency, or make the case to the overseers of everything, whether it's the operations or whether it's the physical, the campus security. Anything that they need to do, we're always here to help them. Again, we want to help them make that case so that they get the best solution that they need for their space.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Sounds great. Patrick, anything else we want to talk about today?
My wife sometimes says that I'm a bit verbose, so why don't we leave it at that for today? But hopefully you'll have me back.
Oh, of course.
And we'll have a whole new thing to talk about.
Of course. Now, I'm going to have to find out about these tennis courts at one time or another, but I'm not going to go there for today. But no, this is great. Again, this is a solution that I think a lot of people hopefully will jump on. And like you said, you're not the first to develop it, but I'm not someone who's really interested in being first. I'm someone who's interested in being best. And so I know that's really where, you've put a lot of focus from everything from, again, development to deployment to support. So we're just really happy to have Verkada as a partner.
Thrilled to have DALY as a partner as well, Rick.
All right. Patrick, thanks so much. It was great having you. And yes, we will definitely have you back. And we're going to have to talk about why the Avengers, with all of the technology they had, never had cameras that saw Thanos coming to bomb their headquarters.
I know. What gives?
I mean, good gravy. You really should look for the product tie-in there.
No kidding. Maybe there's a market there.
I think we should
superhero market.
I think we should make that call. When, as they're going forward with the next iteration of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and even the DC Universe, they need to start realizing, hey guys, you've got all this futuristic tech in there, but you're really missing stuff that's like pretty common today.
They need to start being a little more proactive to their physical security approach.
I think so. Verkada cameras at the Hall of Justice.
There you go. I love it.
All right. Thanks again, Patrick.
Thanks,
Great
Rick.
having you.
Have a good one.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of the Daily Technology Pulse podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Before we sign off, we want to take a moment to remind you of some important legal considerations. The views and opinions expressed by guests on the Daily Technology Pulse podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Daily Computers or its partners. The content provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of Daily Computers Inc. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can find us at www.daly.com. The Daily Technology Pulse podcast will be back with more exciting discussions on the latest in technology. Until next time, stay curious and stay connected.